G'day, welcome to the Farms Advice podcast. To be a fly on the wall of these conversations for myself is a really grateful position to be in. But over the last 6 years, 6 seasons, it's been a privileged position to be able to share these conversations, to bring you along on the journey of improvement as a community that sort of doesn't hold back on improving ourselves as people, but also improving our farms, our businesses, families, our relationships, and hopefully we can dive into everything. This year is the year of high performance farming, and hopefully we're making you a bit more of a higher performer in every facet of the game. But today's episode, we are talking with Bryce Camm. He's the kind of bloke that could run a 65,000 head of cattle and still have time to shape the future of the beef industry. He is at the head of the family group, CAMM Agriculture. He's grown his family business into one of the best looking enterprises that I have seen in the last couple of months. It just looks phenomenal. Phenomenal. He's also the chair of Beef Australia, a director of Cattle Australia, and a firm believer in bringing innovation and integrity to the paddock. Just that, and we'll dive into what it takes to run a large-scale operation, manage risk across multiple properties, and stay ahead in an ever-changing game that we call farming. Let's get into it. Well, Bryce, welcome to the Farms Advice podcast. Great to have you in the virtual studio today.
Great to be with you, Jack.
And great to hear another story of those working within the farming game, but agriculture as a whole. Bryce, just quickly introduce yourself and CAMM's Agriculture and how it all came about for you.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. And so I guess I have the great opportunity to lead our family's ag operation, which is called CAMM Agriculture Group. I represent the fourth generation of my family working in agriculture, particularly in Queensland. And today, CAMM Ag is an integrated beef supply chain business. We have a breeding herd of around 35,000 head up in North Queensland and some background in country and CQ. And our main hub is at our feedlot, Wonga Plains feedlot, located just east of Dalby on the Darling Downs.
And going into this season, how has it been like right across the board and for your main sort of feedlot there at Dalby?
Yeah, Jack, we're in a very fortunate situation this year in that I guess most of Queensland's experiencing a really good season. We had an exceptional summer and coming off quite a good season of last year as well. So I guess for us, the pastoral operation cattle weights are doing well. And that side of the business is charging along. We have been in a big program of conversion of grazing country to farming and cropping to intensify some of our particularly backgrounding operations in North and Central Queensland. And again, that cropping program's done very well this year. I guess it's we're also very aware of the situation that hasn't been so beneficial in the south, and I guess from the feedlot perspective of our business, we draw cattle both out of Queensland and Southern Australia. And I guess that the piece that's really toying with us there is around price of entry into that feedlot program at the moment. We have just finished an expansion of Wonga Plains to 25,000 head now. So so the volumes of cattle that we're putting through that operation are more substantial than we have in years past.
And are you able to maximise that most of the time to 25,000 head?
Yeah, mate, a feedlot business model runs best when they're full, no different to running a hotel in terms of occupancy rates. I guess our business model is about not just direct entry cattle coming into our feedlot, but the supply of our own cattle and background cattle out of those pastoral operations. So yes, we run the feedlot at full occupancy all of the time.
As like a bigger sort of family farming enterprise, you'd sort of claim yourself as going into corporate level. How do you sort of determine what your why is once you have grown to that level? Being the fourth generation, has that why been filtered through, or does it sort of change as the generations come through?
Yeah, Jack, it's a very interesting question. Our family has just been through a rather large succession event, rather unfortunately, because I guess in rural life that sometimes comes with the passing of a generation, and for our family, we have now lost both mum and dad more recently. So I'm the youngest of four siblings. It is not the usual course in ag world that the youngest son ends up running the farm, but all of my siblings are involved in agriculture, and I've one brother who has gone out on his own, and I have two sisters who have their own operations with their families, but they're still invested in CAMM Ag today and sit on our board and are very involved in its strategic direction, and I guess particularly that why piece. So we as a family, I guess have always, particularly, it has been about growing the business and I guess growing the pie, but also building that supply chain piece. Mum and dad particularly, had a vision around, I guess, geographic dispersity, knowing that seasons are not always kind in ag in Australia, and also being able to follow through to a market endpoint. And we very much had a focus, I guess, from the 1970s around grain-fed beef. And so that has been a journey to build that supply chain today. You mentioned the word corporate. My mother would kick me from the grave if I said that we had evolved into a corporate model, and I guess we call it corporate light. We're an absolutely family that we're in the ag business, and particularly the cattle business, because we love it. And I guess while I guess the reality of managing these businesses, unfortunately, you're not always out in the paddock every day, but that is a big piece for us, is being involved with our teams, and getting right across the operation to sort of intimately understand, where things are going well and where they're not going well. I think that why piece, the most exciting part for us is now taking a wider group of people on that journey about why CAMM Ag exists and where we're headed. And I guess we 2 years ago now sat down and really took a moment with a number of our key leaders across our business to look at what the 10-year horizon for CAMM Ag is, and we have built, I guess, quite an aggressive strategy around that, but is that motivator around really the love of ag, and that is actually those exact words remain in our purpose statement today about why this business exists, the journey we're on, and it is all about people, the land, and I guess the cattle that we operate.
It is, and especially in 2025, that probably gets emphasized a lot more around the people and the land that you're operating with. It's interesting, like quite early thinkers to be able to get that geolocations quite spread across it's just the East Coast, isn't it? You're not over in the West Coast.
No, mate, just Queensland at this stage.
So talk to me a bit that vertical integration and how that works, because you're breeding all of your cattle.
No, mate. We would love to do that, but I guess there's a lot of capital involved in a pastoral business, as we all know. So look, we have no desire to breed every beast that we put through our business or grow every grain that we're going to feed to those cattle. But I guess we see those investments in the upstream production of both, our cropping operations and our breeding operations as a natural hedge into that, I guess, the supply of those, major inputs in terms of feed and feeder stock or cattle that we need in our business. And I guess, the Darling Downs feeder steer market, it's a highly competitive place. It's the highest concentration of feedlot cattle in the country. Our competitive advantage is being able to bring in a substantial portion. Today, it's about a third of our cattle throughput coming in out of our pastoral business. And I guess the journey, part of that 10-year plan is very much the journey that we're trying to embark on around the genetics front. And it's a fine balance in terms of breeding cattle in Northern Australia, where seasonal conditions can be variable, and I guess you have the elements of ticks and other, various parasites of Northern Australia, but still delivering a high quality, quality eating animal from a feedlot and box beef point of view.
Yeah, and going to the box beef, where is your beef going to?
Yeah, mate, we at this point in our trajectory don't operate our own brand. So we supply into a number of off-takers, so that we consistently supply every week. 3 of those are major processors and 2, I guess, non-packer exporters or brands that we pack into.
I think that's the exciting side of it, especially once you can get scale, to be able to see where your beef goes. But having those relationships probably quite important to you to keep those, and as you sort of scale up. What size were you before going to 25,000?
The yard was a 10,000 head yard, so it's been an 18-month journey to complete this expansion. And I think you're right. I think being able to follow one's product right through is that quintessential piece of why many are motivated in farming and agriculture more widely. For us today, it is really about building the production or engine room in our business to have a consistent offtake. We sometimes feel that it's very attractive to rush straight to the branded box and steak on the plate. But I guess for us, it's about building the back room and the journey first before we launch our own endpoint.
What improvements have you made on such a diverse sort of parcels of land? How do you even look at those one percenters? Like you'd have some down south that you really want to do, some up north that you want to do. How is it a bit of an aggregation there? How can you look at ticking off some of these as you go along within your role?
Yeah, I think it's made the development journey is always an exciting one, and I guess, but it's can be a long and costly one as well. We are very fortunate in our team to have a person that manages projects and development. So Sam Larry has been with our business for a number of years, and a common joke around Sam is that she gets to spend all the money and have all of the fun. I think it is about prioritizing. You can't do everything all at once, both from a checkbook point of view and from time and focus. And so I guess we look at the portfolio every year about what's internal upgrades or what improvements to the country or operating environment it consists of. And that usually comes, for a lot from our teams on the ground about what improvements, those people that are working the places usually have the best idea about what needs doing and in what order. I think, for us, the focus is around productivity, very much so. So we talk about 1%ers. It's the big things for us in the north is trying to improve that, particularly that weaning rate. And I guess our, target is today, we're really operating at a 60-65% weaning environment, and wanting to drive that towards an 80 is the lofty target. That is very hard to achieve in a Northern Australian context. Lots of people will say they're doing until you have a look at their numbers. And I guess so that's, it's on threefold for us. It's really about genetics, nutrition, and supplementation in particular, particularly around phosphorus and other trace minerals, but then also feed base, I guess, consistent feed base, for those pastoral operations. And that really involves then our intensification piece. So we have done now a conversion program of about 16,000 acres of country from original pasture into a cropping program. So that's mainly around forage crops, focused at growing out both weaner heifers to return into our breeding herd, but also steers in that starting journey. And we have a big focus about, those cattle that we're bringing, as weaners, that first sort of period in getting them up and going into the programs, into our backgrounding programs. And so some of those cattle, it's quite an aggressive program around wanting them to do a kilo a day consistently throughout the year. Again, off a straight pastoral system, we have those cattle doing more like, 0.45 to half a kilo a day. They're probably the two core pastoral operations that we're focused on. Obviously, the feedlot piece, mum and dad built the first pens in 1972, so it has been a renewal and expansion project that's been focused there. And I guess finally, more on a cropping side of things in the south, around Dalby, it's been a piece about irrigation. So we had some underutilized water assets that we have done a large program in the past 2 years of implementing, overhead spray irrigation and conversion from flood irrigation to pivots and lateral waves.
Yeah, I was talking to the Irrigation Association Council to get some irrigated farmers on because it is super intensive, and like what I've seen on socials, pivots can have their day with fixing them if it's not done right.
Yeah, irrigation fascinates me. We have a cotton operation as part of our business. Just I guess the investment that industry in particular has made around R&D and understanding the drivers of productivity is fascinating, and really great to be a part and have exposure to a different sector and group of people, and I guess driving those efficiencies of water use in terms of, what improvements around, what you're delivering from megaliter of water. Again, is a fascinating journey. But you're right, it's not all beer and skittles in mechanical, irrigation. We have we have rolled a couple of laterals over already. Some through our own activities and some through Mother Nature. But no, I think that efficiency piece is probably the big journey for us around irrigation.
You just got to catch them before they roll over the road. Just,
Yeah.
if I seem flustered in this, is just because your sort of scale, you've got so many things going on. I want to talk about transferring your land from probably a pastoral country into cropping. What does that program look like, and like how intense is it? Could like 16,000 acres or hectares?
Acres, man. Yeah.
Obviously, with most farms, we've got to take that bit by bit. But with your scale, can you sort of, is that a
Yeah, I mean that's been a journey for us. My dad, while most of his life he was a cattleman in the north, he grew up on a cane farm, sort of in the Whitsunday region. And Dad was probably always a madly passionate cropper. He would love nothing more than coming down to the farms at Dalby and cruising around in a tractor for the night. So I guess the spark around starting to farm in North Queensland was really under his stewardship. And I guess, while, we tend to do everything in a small fashion to start. And so while the machinery has gotten a lot bigger now, when we started the farming operation in the north, we'd stolen, it feels like an old Chamberlain tractor and the worst pet plough from the place at Dalby to take up there and sort of prove to ourselves that we could do it. And then it involved for sort of the first couple of years really raiding, the farming operations at St George and Dalby, much to probably those farm managers' utter disgust that Dad and I would steal their gear, drive it, through the night, hub at charter styles, and then truck it back, hopefully in some sort of similar shape to what they'd given it to us in. So look, I think, we all know in ag that, margins are not always as flush as we'd like them to be. And the use of, and I guess the capital tied up in machinery today, is not lost on any of us in terms of making sure that we utilize that. The scale of that operation now means that it can justify, our own basic machinery up there in terms of planters and spray rigs and that type of thing. Look, I would say we're still on a learning journey about the right crops that we should, or the best bang for buck around protein and sort of volume of feed in that backgrounding operations from a cropping point of view. We're very excited about, some of the continual being able to plant a crop and carry that across a couple of seasons or a couple of years in terms of payback for planting costs, and really working around fertilizer rates and that kind of piece. At the moment, in terms of really just trying to drive the productivity of those cropping operations. But it's definitely a journey and an exciting one. But I think largely driven by the value of cattle and more importantly, probably the value of land. It is exciting to see, when you drive across Queensland now, how much farming, and cropping and further intensification is taking place in the north and further north, particularly as you go out into the northwest and those types of areas. It's really exciting to see, and that's good, as that scale grows, because it means your local tractor dealership or the agronomist to come and help and give advice is not now 1,000 kilometres away. They might be, just down the road, which helps us all.
When I look at that advice piece for your company, looking at agriculture, agronomy, how do you do that? Like, are you at the scale that you can just have your own agronomist, or you're leaning?
Not yet. It's a discussion. I could launch the ad on your podcast, mate. So yes, we are in a journey of trying to internalize that skill set within the business. Across the range from the north to the south, which we think will be an exciting role. At the moment, we've had an agronomist team working with the business, and one of those for almost 10 years. So and they work right across the business. They head up north occasionally, usually kind of via remote. With the people on the ground up there in terms of photos and videos of what's going on. That advice piece, and again, I think linking back to that cotton story, I guess having the recipe or the instruction guide and what to do and being able to adequately roll that out in an operation. It's a clear demonstration of that value of having outside support and outside eyes to help drive your business. So we're conscious around that of the right move about internalizing that. But I think it's then that conversation between, the operator or the farm manager on the ground and the partner agronomist, in working through what the program for the year ahead is and how we drive the best results.
Looking at that sort of side of it, communication probably becomes a pivotal part of every day for you, especially. But How, as a team, how do you improve, like from using the UHF to, do you have a sort of core channel that you rely on? Is it WhatsApp? Some farmer use Snapchat. I wouldn't advertise Snapchat as the core piece.
I think a lot of our feedlot team use snap maps to find each other, find the stock team where they are on the site for the day. I mean, communication, it's essential in any business, community, or family life, right? It's and it's probably the one greatest challenge for most of us as well. Our home place was up in the north. I grew up there. We didn't have a telephone. It was school of the air. Was most of our education as kids. And today, the ability to video conference sort of right across most of the operation. So yes, there is those improvements. I think there's nothing like being on the ground with your crew to understand the issues that sometimes it might be too hard to embrace on a video call or over the phone. So both myself and our wider leadership team, travel around the places a lot, and that gives us a good, I guess, feel of how our crews are going and how country and cattle are performing. It's probably a lot of tools, to be honest, but I think that face-to-face piece, the value of that's still a really big one. I think the other is just is around upskilling our people in training around communication, leadership, and management styles. And dealing with those tougher conversations is a big part. So we're running a wider program across the business in terms of that at the moment. And that's something that we'll continue to invest in helping, our teams operate. And I think, but it also is coming back to that purpose piece where we kind of started, Jack. Like there is a reason that whether it's an accountant in Brisbane, someone helping, we've got, people that work for the business from an overseas point of view, or the person that wants to be on a horse chasing cattle in North Queensland. There is something about that agricultural operations that tend to attract those people. So getting people, from right across the business out on farm, is a pretty good way of people connecting together as well.
Yeah, I like communication within the farming game, like just from a ground level piece, from simply everyone knows about using the UHF or everyone knows to use Snapchat, and just the cadence of meetings and whatnot of how you're going to set up your day, set up your week and everything like that. I think it's super important. And like to be a fly on the wall of this conversation, a lot of smaller farmers like loan operators or smaller family teams get a lot out of what these episodes are. And what you're doing, Bryce, you probably think it's pretty normal each and every day. Like there's a lot of other farmers probably look at your business and go, wow, that's something to sort of marvel at, and what they're doing. Like to transfer 16,000 acres is no small feat, and to run the teams that you're running across the area that you run as well.
Yeah, I think we're great in ag and always looking over the fed spot and always having some admiration, regardless of the scale. I think there's lots of things that we're still very eager and keen to improve or change in our business, and I think that's the nice piece about ag in general, is that we sometimes don't celebrate enough. It's not always about biggest is best. Sometimes some of the smallest operators have some pretty exciting projects or parts of their operation that they're able to deliver, and it's usually that passion that delivers that, right? And so I think that's a big piece. And I think those wider conversations about younger people entering ag and those kind of things. There's multiple different points at which to join this journey, I think.
I'm a real advocate for optimizing your farmland, and like from expanding, like getting more farmland, purchasing more. You seem putting the pieces together. You seem like you're at that stage and have been for quite a while of optimizing your feedlot to your pastoral to cropping lands. How has that journey been? And like maybe you do differ, you're looking to expand. What is that sort of optimized piece for you?
Yeah, mate, it's a great point, and I think it revolves around that development and project planning piece. So we are sort of, I guess, coming to the end of that stage in our in our 10-year sort of plan around the optimization of the assets that exist today. I don't think that journey is ever complete. I think there's always more to do, but in terms of those big projects that we had chosen, we are sort of coming to the end of that trajectory. And I guess the results, importantly, it's nice to go and do development of projects, but if they don't that doesn't flow through in a growth in revenue or margin, then there wasn't a lot of point. So I guess now it's, for us, it's that flow through is occurring. And I guess, it's one of the big pieces we're talking about our business is good data and having the right, timely, accurate data in front of the right people as quickly as we can is a big piece that we're working on at the moment. So for us, yes, the next piece is an expansion piece. It's not something we're rushing out to do tomorrow, but I think it's something our family's had a long history of is running the numbers on anything, which is a good activity. If you can, if there is another business or block of dirt that becomes available, I think it teaches you a lot about your own operations and the strengths of your own numbers in running the exercise of running the ruler over a new opportunity. And so I guess we have a small team in our business that is working on those sort of activities at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's a really to have those lofty goals and turn those lofty goals into sort of outcomes for your family business. I think that's the cool part of agriculture. Run me through what your day to day sort of looks like, just so people can be a fly on the wall of
Yeah.
how chaotic or organized chaos.
Yeah, it's some would say probably chaotic, mate. It's I am like I'm probably the one of the most unorganized or probably erratic people. But look, I'm typically based at Dolby at our feedlot site. So live on the farms there. I'm a couple of k away from the feedlots. So that is most of the time, but it's very rare that I spend a full week there. And I think if I am there, by Friday, my team's probably asking me, don't I have somewhere else to go and have a look at? So it's typically based at the feedlot. Unfortunately, probably most of my life, particularly this time of year in budget season, is stuck behind a 5-year cash flow I can't get to make work at the end of it. So I'm trying to always improve that. A lot of my time is talking with our team, be that making decisions around operational plans, be that purchasing decisions around our cattle program, or I guess, some of the projects and improvements that we're trying to make around the business. So it does involve a lot of meetings and conversation with those team members, be it face to face or remotely. And I guess then I spend a lot of time, traveling around the places. So I like to be up in North Queensland sort of at least every second week. Keeping abreast of what's going on there. And I guess it's still, still getting involved. My office is 500 odd meters away from the cattle yards at our feedlot. I love nothing more than going down there and still helping a mob of cattle go through the crash. But it's probably, again, my phone probably doesn't stop ringing and my team probably chase me away from there pretty quickly because I'll end up getting in the riot. So yeah, it's hard to say that there's a day a week that, there's a standard week or a standard day, but I guess that ability to chip in, right? It feels like in lots of these operations, we never quite have enough people or enough people in the right spot at the right time. So, and I think you learn a lot about the operation, whether it's jumping on a spray rig in North Queensland and giving a hand, or it's or it's mustering a mob of cattle in CQ. That being involved in the business is really why we existed and why we're involved in it.
It's an unreal role for yourself and for everyone to hear about it. There's not too many opportunities that we can be a fly on the wall of these. So, Bryce, we appreciate you coming on. We've got some little bit quicker questions for yourself. What's your favorite tool, app, tech that you're using on the farm right now?
ChatGPT, I feel like is a big one. So it tends to be my new go-to for answering a question. That's probably.
What's a resource that you've been sort of shaped by? It could be a book, a podcast, a person.
I think, mentorship, I have been very fortunate, both from a family side of things, but also, a number of individuals that have invested and given very generously of a lot of their time to me. So that's been a big part of my journey and development.
For the young ones, a lot of the mentorship bit is, how do I find a mentor? Any advice on that?
Yeah, I think Ag has sort of rolled out a number of programs. I know, some of the ones I've been involved in developing, both from Beef Australia, around the Graham Acton mentoring program, and now Cattle Australia has developed, an advocacy in terms of the national beef leaders. So I think there's a lot of those style of programs that are open and I encourage people to get involved in. But I think the biggest piece is just reaching out. We've almost got someone that we admire, or that neighbor that we think's doing a better job at growing a crop, or someone down the road that you've heard of. I think, there's so many ways to access people's contacts these days, be it social media, LinkedIn, or through the good old phone book. But just pick up the phone, reach out, because you're surprised how generous people will be with their time or their knowledge, I think. And I always encourage just people to pick up the phone and have a chat.
That's how I got you. I messaged you on LinkedIn, and here we are.
Yeah.
And we didn't know each other before, but now we're bloody good mates, hopefully.
Correct.
And we'll be able to come out, check that on the farms at some stage. That would be amazing to do. But what would be your advice to your younger self before taking on the family business? What do you wish you sort of knew?
Well, Jack, I still think I am my younger self, hopefully, but I guess it's that not everything has to be perfect, and to just get in and give it a crack. I think, I often, particularly in my earlier years, would spend lots of time thinking through a plan or a project or an idea to try and get it perfect before sharing that more widely, be it with the family or team members. I think having those discussions and starting a project, you can always make improvements along the way. But sometimes the biggest challenge is just kicking it off and getting it going.
Yeah, that implementation piece is huge within ag. If you don't take action, like start today. That's probably been the biggest advice I've gotten from the podcast, is just start now. If it's a 2-minute job, or just to make a plan, can be set you off on the way, and it might be what you've done as a family group as well. What's a myth or misconception about feedlotting or your side of the industry that you'd like to bust?
Mate, I think the probably the biggest one that we challenge with, is this grass versus grain kind of debate. Intrinsically, the two sides of the industry are 100% tied together. The largest market for grass-fed cattle is the grain-fed sector, and the grain-fed sector can't exist without the grass. So I think we talk probably far too much as a sector ourselves about grass versus grain. At the end of the day, high-quality Australian beef at an affordable price for our global customers is really the big outcome that I think we're all working towards.
That's a great one. What's next for CAMM Group? What are you most excited about?
I think it's a continual growth journey. We are working on a big data project, and in terms of internalizing kind of some AI technology and really getting that, accurate, or harnessing accurate data right across the business, and having that really timely. So that's one of the big projects we're working on. We're pretty excited about.
Would that be linking your feed to nutrition and getting your weight goals correctly? Accuracy?
Yeah, mate. Particularly on the weight front, I think I always tell people this. My coolest bit of tech that we have in the business at the moment is the OptiWeigh units. I think, just in terms of a practical, great Australian development that really works, is pretty cool. So yeah, it's a number of data points that we just, and there's lots of data in all of our businesses, but it's about sort of probably trying to, get through to the chunky numbers that actually really mean something, and putting those, sort of each week in front of the right people.
Yeah, huge shout out to Bill. He's been a big supporter of the podcast and moved into the sheep game as well. So we might chuck that link in there. But yeah, OptiWeigh has been a game changer, and competition's coming in now, but competition in ag is always good.
Correct.
Where can your listeners, if they're wanting, you probably have a few careers. I'm on your website now, and you said you were hiring a role before. Where can we go out, find more about CAMM Group?
Yeah, mate. Probably the website. I know it's going through a bit of a redevelopment at the moment, which always feels to be the case. But yeah, like I said, just pick up the phone and reach out to us. We're always looking for additional people to join the team. I think we passed through 110 people a couple of months ago that are part of the business today, and so it's always looking for more, and excited to have them involved in the journey.
Well, mate, I really appreciate your early morning call. It's not too early. It's 8 o'clock, nearly 9. Always appreciate the time that people give to me to get this information out there. Across your journey, what has been the best piece of farms advice you've received?
Mate, I think it is that start today and get into it kind of piece. That's always been one that stays with me.
Well, Bryce, mate, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. To be a fly on the wall of your operation and see what your family has done, I think your mum and dad would be very proud of you sort of taking on the legacy of the business. I think these episodes are a great time for you to reflect, but also for other family farms to be that fly on the wall.
Oh, great to be with you, Jack. Thanks a lot.
Stop him there. Thanks for listening to the Farms Advice podcast. just so you know, the conversation does not stop there. Take this away, go chat with your farming crew to see what you might be able to implement yourself. It's just a great way to be that fly on the wall and sort of understand what others are doing out there and how to think differently. And I think Bryce Camm is onto something, and they have been onto something for quite a few years now. It's really not about where your farm is, how much rainfall you get. It is all about your mindset, I think, and how you set yourself up to succeed out there. There is truth in the lower the rainfall that you can be better than those in higher rainfall. So just so you know, it does not come down to where you are positioned. It comes down to your mindset, how you want to run your farm and how you want to run yourself ideally. That is Farms Advice Podcast, the long version of farming. Until next week, keep on farming, keep up it, keep at it.